Time before we went
She
on.
lives like 3 blocks from us, so I
All right,
drove over there until my wife could get home to cover for me. for the
looks
three
like we
days.
are at 5:30 on January 21st,
Plus my daughter
2021. We'll go ahead and
is home from DC.
call the school board
So
meeting
she's-
to order.
There to help too. So
Karen, can we get roll call
Andy,
here?
Crab,
Here.
Fisher,
Here.
Nave,
Here.
Slings,
Here,
Crowell,
Here.
Powell,
Here,
All right, looks like we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and continue. Item 1B, agenda adoption. Dr. Lutnick, are there any changes to the agenda?
There is one change. We need to omit item 2C. Not
2C,
to
real
a
estate
full
purchase
agreement.
Okay,
Yet,
all right, we'll go ahead and pull that. Do I have a motion?
motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, a second. Mr. Fisher, thank you. All right, Karen?
Crab,
yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes,
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
yes,
Handy,
Yes. All right, 1C, district vision and mission. Do I have any volunteers that would like to read that? for
Sure.
us? Thank you.
Southeast Polk will learn, lead, live. Success for college, career, and civic life. Engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Thank you very much. All right, now's the time, 1D, for public comments. If you have any comments, we'll give you some time to type those in. I've got a couple here that I'll go ahead and read while we're waiting for any of the other online ones. First one is from Sandy Smith at 3202 2nd Avenue Southeast in Altoona. And she writes, with kids back full time, just curious if masks will be going away. If masks do go away, I feel that we will be back at square one because kids are not able to get the vaccine and the illness percentage will just rise again. And we'll be going back to the hybrid 2 schedule or even virtual. Just wondering what your thoughts are on this.
That's one where I know, we don't normally answer these, but just
Sure.
so there aren't any rumors out there, we have no plans to change the mask requirement at this time.
Thank you very much. All right, second one is from Julie Dewar at 1925 Southeast 82nd Street, and I'm guessing that's Runnels, Iowa. It says, hello board. Thank you so much for your service. As I know this past year has been tough. My comments today involve data and using data to make decisions. Based off the district COVID dashboard, 4 out of our 8 elementaries have 5 to 10% absentee rates when it comes to students, staff, or both. With 50% of the elementary schools in our district being affected by COVID, per the dashboard data on January 20th. I'm guessing it says 01/20. I'm guessing that's probably the date, not the year. But with what criteria are you using to further mitigate the slowing of the spread? For one, that's the first question. As a parent, we have no clear guidelines on when classrooms will be shut down. What matrix are used to make those decisions? And the district COVID dashboard is not updated on a regular basis for parents to make informed data-based decisions. I understand the push to have children in the school full time, but that also means full-time safety. You have got school spread happening, which also indicates that measures currently in place aren't working in those classrooms. With COVID positive students. How long is it before you know there was a classroom outbreak when data is only updated once per week and thus doesn't mean the approach is reactive instead of proactive? And then it's too late. The damage is already done when it comes to slowing the spread as children are bringing this home to their families. Second question. Additionally, schools have different protocols for how they notify parents of COVID positive cases in the buildings. There doesn't seem to be consistent plan of action district-wide. I believe we can do better, and I believe transparency builds trust. Please set matrix and update data daily so parents can make these informed decisions about the education and safety of their students. Sincerely, Julie.
And you're gonna contact her,
Yeah, again,
correct some of her.
we'll have somebody reach out and touch base to correct some of the things in there. And then when we go through the return to learn, I can address a few of those as well.
Okay, thank you for those two comments. Are there any others, Jason, that have popped up while we're doing that? Okay. Anybody do you want to give more time, or is everybody good with moving on?
I'm okay with moving
I
on.
think if anybody would have done it, they would have done it during that.
President Handy, this is Kevin. There have been no other comments to me via email either.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McComb. All right, looks like we'll go ahead and close out public comments, and we'll move on to 1E consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments for administration? All right, hearing none. Karen?
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Sounds like he's almost here, doesn't it?
We miss you, Chad. All right, moving on to item 2, old and new business. We'll start with confirmation of next meeting, which will be February 4th and February 18th of 2021.
Motion to approve.
A second.
Second.
All right, Karen?
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab.
Yeah.
Fisher,
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Item 2B, we have our school budget review committee, SBRC approval, special education administrative costs. Administrators recommends the board approve the application for spending authority of the amount of $3,296 for special education administrative costs for a student enrolled in the Grandwood Education Center. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second, anybody?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any questions for administration? All right, hearing none. Karen?
Slings,
Yes.
Crowell,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Okay, item 2C has been pulled from the agenda, and we'll move into 2D. Budget guarantee resolution fiscal year 21-22. Administration recommends the board approve the resolution to approve the budget guarantee for fiscal year 21-22. If anybody else cares to read the information, that's great. If not, can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions on any of this?
President Handy, School Board, this is just a resolution to put in place. We don't know what SSA is at this time, obviously. We know the governor did present a 2.5% increase to supplemental state aid. Our break-even point for supplemental state aid is 2.2%. But as we've known from history, we don't know what the exact percentage is until everything's passed through legislation. So this is just a safe haven put in place for us to make sure that we get our budget resolution of 1.01% for next year. 101%, I'm sorry.
And so I guess I do have a question on that. This is just, so this pretty much says when we don't get the money we need, we're going to take it out of the savings account essentially.
This says essentially that we will get 101% of our regular program dollars from last year. It doesn't come out from any savings account. This is assessed to property tax owners
That's right.
for the
Okay.
following year.
I do remember that. And that can be beneficial, but it also can hurt us the following year, correct? If we don't get the right percentage from the state.
Definitely, sure, yes.
Okay. All right. So we really hope for some good percentage from the state. So, okay.
4% would be good. I'm campaigning.
There you go. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, Karen?
Kraut,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Yes.
Slings,
Slings, it says yes.
Whoever you want to be.
Yeah.
Okay, moving right along then. Any questions or? I think we already did that, didn't we?
Yeah. You're there with me, aren't you?
Yeah, you got me. You got me rolling now. All right, to E, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, temporary COVID-19 leave policy for our district. Administration recommends the board approve the temporary COVID-19 leave policy. Federal government is obviously not paying that anymore, so they have a plan in place to help. Well,
Motion to approve.
yep. Second, thank you.
Rick.
Any questions for staff? Seems like this is really the only route we have to go right now, and hopefully the government will step back up and take care of that.
I assume this is other, our peer group are probably doing similar.
Yep, there's a wide variety.
Is there?
I know that Joe and Margie are both out there, so I don't want to step on their
Okay.
toes, but people are doing it in a variety of ways, but some form of this for the
Okay.
most part.
I would agree to echo on what Dr. Hlupnik said. Waukee is doing this. Johnston is doing something very similar. Ankeny is doing something very similar as well.
Okay.
And it seems fair.
I'm glad we're doing it, or at least because we haven't voted on it yet, but I'm glad we're looking at doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Makes sense. So, any other questions or comments? Okay, Karen?
Powell,
Yes.
Handy,
Yes.
Crab,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Nave,
Tom says yes.
Slings,
She says yes.
Crowell,
Yes. Start referring to ourselves in the third person.
It's going on.
Brett says we're moving on, so. All right, item 3, topics for discussion, return to learn discussion.
You bet. You've got the latest data at your seats here. I'll look at the chart first with the criteria, low, medium, high. And just kind of run through those briefly. You can see from a Polk County positivity over 14 days, that is at 13%. That's been gradually headed downward. And our SEP zip code is a little bit better at 11.6%. Absentee rates, those are illness related. You can see our students are at 6.28, and that's for the week. Staff 9.6. Our positive student cases from a student standpoint, we're at 0.4%, quarantine 1.8, staff were 0.5%, quarantine 1.3. Within our zip code, the cases per 100,000 over 14 days is still being kind of stubborn up there at 558. That's really kind of those. And just to kind of tie into the previous question in public comments, these are things that we look at every day and monitor every day. And there are other things beyond this too that don't go on this sheet, but so there are several things that we're monitoring, which kind of takes us right into the other sheet, our dashboard data. We update that every Wednesday and Friday. And I think maybe it is a worthy discussion of whether we look at trying to do that every day. It is time consuming, but it is also important data for people to see. And if we can figure out a way to automate that, I know Chad had shared something that could possibly be a solution with the data analysis tool. But as you look at our dashboard data, as of today at 4 o'clock, this is repeating some of the stuff from the previous page, but we've got 29 total students positive, 123 quarantined, and we're in the 0 to 5 positive for staff, 13 quarantined. And then our building absentee rates within those ranges of 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and greater than 10. One of the things that we said when we were switching into the models back in that December meeting was we would look at when those absentee rates got above 10% for both students or staff, and that would trigger the discussion of whether some sort of change needed to happen, whether that was a classroom closure or a building closure or something like that. So when that 10% happens, there's a conversation with the nurse, principal, district administration to look more closely at, okay, what are the causes of those absences, cases, sources, consultation with Polk County Health Department if needed. We're always going to err on the side of safety. And I can tell you that, again, our sources continue to be outside of school. When you look on that dashboard, the 15 close contacts at school for, those are quarantines, not for positive tests.
No.
Almost always that's related to lunch of some sort where we are within that 6 feet because we just can't be that far away everywhere with the number of students and the square footage that we have. So that we know that's a weak spot. We continue to look at how we can make that as safe as possible.
What about that one building that's at the greater than 10 on the staff?
Yeah. First of all, it's Mitchellville. So when you're talking about staff, you're in the 20s. So it doesn't take many to get
To
to
knock
that
it, sure.
percentage. None of those are related to schools. They all
Okay.
came from family scenarios, and yeah. So, yep.
Yeah, and I think the numbers obviously show that we're still doing a great job the students and staff are doing what they have to do to, mitigate this as much as we can. And some of the points made, one of the questions that came up was about, children aren't going to get the shots, and we're not. Obviously that's going to be a thing that we're going to deal with probably for until
Another
they
year.
decide that children need it.
Mhm.
So, obviously I think the goal of the board was, when we talk about the 100% back into school, it's how far do we go with, limiting on school at 100%. And we have those safeguards that if we need to go back, but even once all the adults and everybody gets their shots, we are still going to have that issue that the students aren't going to get it. So, I think these numbers are, I'd like to see them lower, of course, but I think with only 15 close contacts at the whole, when you look at that's not bad. I don't want to try to make this a good thing because COVID is terrible, and
And those 15 close contacts are spread all over the district, correct?
Correct.
yeah. So that's
The second page of that sheet that I'm on now just walks through the isolation and quarantine data over the last couple of weeks. Well, since winter break, and you can just kind of follow the positives and the quarantines that go along with that. And we just, any case is concerning, and it's something that our nurses are monitoring on a daily basis in real time, whether that's during school hours or not. They've just been incredible throughout this whole thing. Their job never really stops. Whenever there's any kind of scenario here, they work it until it's done. So.
And on the absentee rates, those are including everything from just the basic flu to just somebody deciding they want a day off, or
No, it's illness related.
so this is just any illness. It's not just
Right.
COVID. Okay.
Right. And that could include illness of a child if you're talking about staff,
Yeah.
but it's illness related.
So the numbers aren't really accurate for COVID. And I think people, and I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but I think when people look at this, they think 5 to 10% is based on COVID only. And that's not accurate, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's illness. Yep.
So our normal absentee rate, we're I guess Do you have that? I didn't see that.
It's not on in any of this data. I mean, that's something we can pull. I mean, our average daily attendance rate for a year is 95%. So 5%-ish would be normal. And now that includes all absence reasons,
Okay.
not just illness, but.
And I suppose there's not a way when we talk about updating and figuring out what we're gonna do with the dashboard is, do they tell us other than what the numbers? I mean, some people probably have symptoms that they just don't want to alert anybody, so they just call in sick for whatever reason. So we may not know that. So is there a true way of actually separating out what COVID is versus, and I know they don't have to tell us, but I mean, it's kind of one of those things that might ease the people's minds that it's not, when they see it, okay, it's not all COVID, it's other reasons too.
Yeah, I can't really answer that other than when there's a positive test, we get that information either from the state or county or from the family. Either way, we're going to get that information, but symptoms, that's a tough one.
Yeah, okay.
We're still under the governor's emergency thing, Dirk, aren't we? Where if you needed to pull the trigger on a school, you
Yes,
can do that.
yes.
And you're looking at this stuff daily, I guess.
Multiple times daily, yes. And I would say, I mean, Joe Horton, I think is out there. This is his day and on many days.
Dr. Lupnick, you mentioned a minute ago that our biggest challenge is probably the lunchtime, which I understand, and we don't have enough space, but most schools don't have space, that's for sure. But the high school, having the gymnasium right next to the commons, have they even considered pulling out the west bleachers of the gym and letting some kids or staff spread out during lunch?
They've considered all kinds of things,
Yeah.
and what they've done is extended the lunch period
Right.
for a longer period of time so that at any given time, there's a smaller group of students in the different spots where they're eating.
Right, I just trying to brainstorm like everybody else, how lunch
Mhm.
could be done more efficiently.
Sure, sure.
Because aren't the kids using disposable plates and stuff?
Yep, we'll have Steve here at the end of the meeting. We can ask him that question once
Okay.
he talks about his schedule stuff.
Okay, thank you. That and the junior high having two gymnasiums, maybe a section of bleach. I know it's not as close to the cafeteria as the high school is, but just space,
Then the final thing with this, and then any other questions that you may have. I'm not sure if you had a chance to hear the governor's news conference today, but they have solidified a little bit more the plan for 1B for vaccinations. There is now a tiered set of levels. I think there's 5 levels within 1B, and PK-12 staff are in that first tier. So what we're being told is as of February 1, 1B will begin tier 1, which will include staff, but beyond that, we don't have a whole lot of detail. It sounds like they will not be coming to our schools. It will be the sites that exist out there within Polk County, and staff members will
Go to them.
make appointments and then head that way. I think Hy-Vee and Medicap and Altoona are kind of the 2 spots within our district that I'm aware of right now. They may be expanding that. There's still a lot of fluidity there. Everything is based on the supply of the vaccine as to how fast that rolls out. But it is good news.
And this was kind of brought up in the safety meeting the other day. And I stepped out for a second, but there's conversation as far as whether staggering or we're not gonna worry about that. What was the final decision on that?
It's going to be really tough for us to be able to do that because we're not really going to have control over when those vaccinations occur, since people will be going out
Scheduling their own.
on a site and scheduling their own appointments.
Okay.
I think naturally it's going to kind of happen based on that, just the way that's set up. If something changes with that, then clearly we would change how we would do that, because it sounds like that second dose of the Moderna vaccine is where there is a more likely side, like a day or so of where you may not feel the greatest. But again, it differs from person to person, and I don't want to pretend to be a medical expert here.
Just play one on TV.
So, you know, if the plans change and suddenly it's something different, then we'll adjust to that.
Thank you, Dirk.
Anything else on return to learn? If anybody wants to talk about? If not, I think you get the next one too.
Sure, jump into just a few quick updates. Always starting with good news. We've completed the first semester and we're off and running in the second semester. And just a huge thank you to everybody in the clearly the strangest first semester that we'll probably all ever live through. And a thank you to all the work that everybody's done to pull that off. I want to point out Clay Elementary is a finalist, which means they're in the top 3 in the Healthiest State Initiative. There are 3 total buildings. I think 1 in Waterloo and maybe 1 in Council Bluffs. I can't remember the third one. So they are fired up about that, and we'll see how that competition goes, and hopefully they can come out on top. But regardless, it's quite an honor to be in a finalist. Was happy to see we had band concerts last weekend. It's been a while since that happened. Again, very unique and unorthodox in the gym and with distancing and all the things required there. So that was great. I probably saw the Rhythmettes, What's New, dominated their state level competitions over the weekend. So just lots of exciting things happening right now. From a review standpoint, I think right now we're into the legislative session and obviously keeping a close eye on several things education related. A couple of big ones that dropped yesterday. Senate Study Bill 1064 and 1065 are probably the ones that are catching the most right now. 65 is the one that deals with vouchers and charters and open enrollment and all kinds of interesting things, which we'll be talking quite a bit more about. It is fast-tracked where they'll have a subcommittee meeting on Monday, and it may go to discussion on the floor of the Senate as early as Monday afternoon. So I'll be giving you a detailed update and breakdown of what that all consists of tomorrow. You know, we are, as we talk about that, we talked a little bit about with our budget guarantee resolution tonight and talked about SSA and where we need to be. A lot of that drives are, I mean, we're in that process right now of the FY22 budget, FY22 staffing, and all those things are intertwined, but we still have to go through those processes. And it does look like that's going to happen sooner rather than later within the session, which is a good thing. But I've also told you that in previous years. And then we've waited till the end of April before we really knew. So time will tell. Be happy to take any questions.
I think you're off the hook.
All right, thank you.
All right, looks like Mr. Bacom, you're back up.
Kelly, on Dr. Lupnick's comments, I thought I heard today in a webinar I sat in that around Valentine's Day was the time frame that SSA might be set, but who knows? As Dr. Lupnick mentioned, we aren't certain until we're certain through legislation. The financial statements through the month of December, you have them at your disposal, if you will. Talk briefly about general fund revenues, up 7.44% based on certified enrollments going up and SSA increases. We had some Medicaid revenues come through from February, March of last year that just came through recently. So we've got to record those in this year. That's why you're seeing a quite a big jump in the Medicaid revenues this year compared to last. The biggest piece of this, as you see other revenues, you see sharp declines in much of those areas, including textbook fees, transportation fees, interest income, student activity fees, and all those related to the pandemic, of course. The one thing I wanted to point out here, and also on the all funds report, is the other federal revenues. This is where the CARES money is falling into. We are wrapping up some of the first wave of CARES money. We spent a good chunk of that at the end of last fiscal year. We got a total of $373,000 for CARES money and another $272,000 for GEARS money. Again, all through the federal government. I know you hate acronyms. I'm sorry. This is all for the pandemic costs. GEAR money was geared towards hotspots, connectivity, that sort of thing for our students and education. And the CARES funding is geared toward more of the PPE and the sanitizing type of costs. The expenditures for general fund up 8%, wages and benefits up 4.2% through this time frame. A little bit of timing differences between software purchasing costs, licensing costs, and of course, within the plant operation area, some of those COVID supplies we've had to buy. We've got to record those in those areas in which we pay for them, and with the money coming in to the district in the general fund as well. There are also some pretty good increase in HVAC repairs at that point in time through December as well compared to last year. All funds, revenues up 1.1%. One thing I wanted to point out here was food service revenues, as you'll see, is a sharp decline of about 36%. Obviously, with kids not being consistently in our buildings and us not to be able to serve those children, those revenues are down. On the offside, we do get some reimbursements through the remote picking up of meals that we had during this first semester as well. The other local revenues increase for all funds deals with the high school roof damage that happened last year. Expenditures for all funds remain flat. Total wages and benefits up 3.1%. Again, in the non-instructional area, you'll see a sharp decline in those costs, 25%. That's all related to the service program. CARES 2 funding, SBO, business officials have been talking about this for quite some time here as we kind of see it kind of rolling out. We know some of the rules from the federal government. We're waiting on the rules from DE. We know from Southeast Polk side, we'll get a little over $1.7 million. We'll gather a little committee together here, user group together within the district to kind of determine where that might be best based on the rules. We have some ideas already, including some of the things you've already have approved. In addition to the 11, if you remember the 11 long-term subs that you approved here recently to help backfill some of the areas that we have within our buildings if the pandemic leaves. That's one of those things where we'll discuss to be filled up or reimbursed with those CARES 2 funding. Other than that, no other updates from me at this time. Any questions from you?
No.
Thank you. Mr. Chris got me a new camera, so I'm glad I don't sound like Mickey Mouse tonight.
You kind of do.
That was wrong.
It's all right. Still look like Bradley Cooper.
Thank you.
Very much. All right, next up is this.
We've got some people here tonight from FRK to give us an update on the progress with the 6th and 7th building and the visioning and where we are now.
All right, that's our cue, Dr. Holupnik.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for your time this evening, board members and administration. We're very excited to be part of the planning process and your design team for the new 6-7 building. And we understand that a couple of the board members who have been participating in the visioning sessions have brought some information back to you about how that process is going. But tonight we just wanted to give you a formal update on where we're at, what we've been doing, and kind of where we go next. So you have all received the report that was, I think, sent out to you earlier this afternoon. So certainly invite you to take a look through that and look at those details. We will not be going through that in detail. We're going to pull out some highlights here this evening and then answer any questions that you might have about the process. So kind of the big picture overview is that during the months of November and December, we had 3 visioning sessions, which of course, as we're all very aware of the times, were done very differently than we would normally do them as an architecture firm working with districts for visioning. We would have done this all in person, and it would have been a lot of group activity and generated a lot of excitement. I'm very happy to say that even though we were all virtual for these meetings, I can't thank the district enough and the participants enough for the level of engagement and enthusiasm that was exhibited as we went through these sessions. John, Ryan, and I from our firm, I guess we should introduce ourselves. I didn't think of that, sorry. My name is Tom Wallen with FRK. Ryan Smart is an architect with our firm, and John Darvo as well. And we'll each have a little bit of time to present this evening. So I'm starting out here just giving you this overview. So the first session, we just learned some things about future-ready education design, which is a passion and of ours as a firm, and the desire of the district has shared with us the direction that you'd like to go to make this a future-ready school, a prototype for how education delivery will happen moving forward with the district. The second session that we did was really a lot of fun. We broke up into groups, again, virtually, and each of the groups spent some time with some materials that we provided to design buildings for what the 6-7 school might look like. And in your report, you'll see kind of the results of some of those. And John, if you wanted to scroll down, you can kind of see how that went. We provided some materials and instructed the participants to, again, virtually lay these color-coded areas of the building out to put together what the school might look like. 3 different groups came up with 3 very different designs, and it was really a lot of fun to participate in that. The end result of that is that we'll kind of amalgamate the best of and the most important aspects from each of these designs, and come up with one that encapsulates the ideas that were most important as they percolated up for the surface as we went through that process. Ryan Smart in our office is going to just share some of the major kind of themes that came out of that process, and what we heard very clearly from participants in terms of important aspects of the building. So I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Thank you. I also, before going through this, I do want to echo what Tom said, that this is a very exciting experience, and looking forward to seeing this come to fruition and go through this process to the end and provide you a high quality product. That's just my little spiel. But the big things from those 3 layouts that we got, we had on session 3 was a debrief, and there's a long list of items here that was come together with the group, and I'll just talk out a couple of them. For an entry experience, there was talks about how the efficiency works at the beginning and the end of the day, and some control aspects regarding that. From an experiential aspect, as you come into the building, putting the students' learning, the students' arts, awards, those kind of aspects on display was a key element that many people wanted to incorporate. Throughout many of the conversations, and throughout all 3 of the layouts, incorporating an outdoor learning moment of some kind was definitely heavily wanted. The challenge is how to do it in Iowa, but we're definitely looking forward to that challenge. From a learning communities perspective, there was some back and forth, but what we came upon was that we'll create 4 learning communities that create flexibility on whether or not it's broken up by grade, or it's intermingled, or it's by floor. Likely this building will be multi-story, at least 2 stories, 2 stories. And the integration with how all the classes tie together and the spaces and adjacencies was heavily talked about. Central space for the students, an interior community feel between it. There was talks about creating that. And then providing performance spaces, whether it's arts, theater, or not theater, but like a performance space, and how the sports spaces tie together. The overall arching feel and concepts to integrate that we gathered was this needs to be a big and bold building that thinks outside the box, but has maximum flexibility and provides a future ready facility that can last for decades. That was ultimately what we some of the stuff that came from the discussion. I'll hand it over to John for a little bit more detailed elements.
Thanks, Ryan. So to start this piece, this design shred off, we kind of created a sample program as at the beginning that we used as a jumping off point for the group to kind of get a feel for what goes in the building. So we laid out those spaces of what a normal 6-7 middle school would be. And then as we talked through the first couple of sessions, we adjusted those spaces based on some of the feedback that we got about things they want to do inside the building. So ultimately what that did was allow us to create a final program for the building that will go into the detail of, and I won't go through into all of it, but you can read it. It's basically how many learning spaces there are, where the storage is, how those relate to one another. And that's all in the appendix of this document that you received. So you have, it's broken up, color-coded learning communities. Keep jumping, my PDF keeps jumping here. Fitness, administration, all the different pieces that fit into that building. And we've created a chart at the beginning of that that kind of shows you where we're at. So taking in all of those spaces gives you a maximum capacity for a school. I mean, if you filled every space every moment of the day of a little over 1,500 students. At a middle school level, we usually use about an 80% efficiency rate for classrooms, and that gets us down to right around the 1,200 student population, which we're shooting for this building. The space layout there in each one of those areas is given and their percentage. So the programmed net area is about 142,000 square feet. We use a grossing factor based on experience of buildings that we've done throughout our history. It's about a 35% where you start adding walls into spaces, you start adding additional mechanical, additional circulation, additional toilet type of things that are already programmed in there. It's about 35% additional space, which brings us up to be about a building size of about 192,000, little over square feet, which is kind of what we're targeting. It's right around where we think we need to be at the start of this. So what our next steps are is to take this detailed program. We've kind of talked with the district personnel about this and kind of refined some of the areas in what we had questions for. So we will take this along with the feedback we got from our 3 concepts that we will amalgamate into one concept. Once we get a site that we know we're building on that we can arrange the building for, we will kind of take all of this information and create a schematic design, and that's kind of our next step. So that is about all the information we have for tonight. If there's any questions we can answer for you.
Very exciting. It's fun to see the progress.
I have a question for you. You've done an incredible job. This is a great presentation. You mentioned a couple times that the capacity of the school is 1,200. I see it on the handout, 1,216. And I look at our numbers from Mr. Horton. If we were to put this year's 6th and 7th graders in a building, they're at 1,093, so close to 1,100. So to me, it seems like this school is being built way too small for the growth of Altoona and Pleasant Hill for the future. Why would we build a school for 1,200 that's going to be passed in a few short years, in my opinion?
I can jump in a little bit, Rick. That's at 80% utilization. So as we would get larger than that, you can get closer to 100% utilization of rooms. But there kind of is that point between 650 and 700 students per class where the district will have a bigger conversation about splitting into two different pathways. So
So you're saying the building's big enough for 650 students? Is that what you're saying?
Per class.
right.
About 750. Right.
To get up to the 1,500 mark, yeah, you could technically be in the 700s. Now that would be uncomfortable.
That would be
yeah, it would definitely be uncomfortable. But
So
as
I don't know how to read charts very well, I guess, but the last page where it says student capacity,
Mhm.
the very black line, the very last thing on the last page,
right,
student capacity. Shouldn't that say what it could hold, which means?
they figure that in a utilization factor of 80%. Just above that where it says 1520, that would be at 100% capacity.
All right, well, I feel better now, but I would hate to see us build something too
I
small.
absolutely agree. And there's that fine line of where is the right size before we would split,
That's
and then
big
it would be
enough
wasted space.
in
Yeah.
one building.
I will point out that we, part of this program and part of the talk was creating professional areas for teachers that allows them to office outside of the classrooms, which allows you to boost that efficiency rate of your classrooms. So you can get up to near 100, so the teachers don't have to use an empty classroom for their planning time.
Another question I have, are any of these classrooms, do they have any storage at all? I'm kind of an old school person, an old school teacher. Used to be classrooms had cabinets and things. I know textbooks are probably something of the, in the past, but still it seems like we're building rooms with just 4 walls and they're nice. But is there any storage at all in any of these classrooms?
That's kind of in the next level of detail that we get into with the design. But yeah, we typically build usually at least a third of a wall or a full wall full of cabinets in a classroom. But we will kind of ferret that out in the next stage.
Great, thank you. That's good to
In
hear.
addition to that, we would probably be looking at some storage rooms that would be associated with each of the classroom pods, as well as a teacher professional library where textbooks and teacher resource materials could be centrally located as well. But yeah, we'll want to be very mindful of storage needs.
It's kind of like a family buying their own personal house. You'd hate to have bedrooms without closets or lack of storage, So I'm glad you're doing all this. Thank you.
I would thank those that have been in part of the planning process. This is my first time to see it. And I guess what I would urge, and of course, this is like any project, you've got a balance. It's on a fulcrum between efficiency and I saw in here wow factor, which I like. I would like, you folks designed our current high school, isn't that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
You know, and I think that's got wow factor when you're in that big atrium. And I know maybe that's, you know, not utilizing all that air, but I think we want a learning environment that's inspirational for the kids and the staff that are in there. And so I appreciate, you know, incorporating, you know, the space and the light and the lines and you know, I think a lot of time public projects can be too square box and our high school isn't. And so I hope that in the end we get a product that looks more like that instead of, you know, here's an efficient building with 4 walls. And I know it's kind of an impossible task because we've asked you to be efficient as well, but wow factor, particularly in the, you know, I see in this one design, there's a commons and there's an upper level. And I think that sounds really neat. But thank you for your work. And I suppose, I guess one more particular question would be, and I know it's expensive to do this too, but I saw this in here about it needs to be flexible. Would there be a thought that this would be designed in such a way that we could add on to it at some point if we needed to? I mean, is that part of the process too, or?
Absolutely. And that's kind of goes along with the determining the site too. So that we have the lay of the land.
Yeah, you
and
can't
the
add on if
ability
there's no
to-
room. Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
But absolutely.
Wonderful. And I guess my only comment to that too, Gary, is like safety and security. I mean, it wasn't that long ago we were talking about entrances and security and
Right.
remodels.
Yeah.
So,
So this time we can build it on the front end.
all right. Yep. That's why I was looking at these, trying to figure out, yeah, kind of how that's going to flow too, as far as the checkpoints and the extra security we have at every entry point to the building.
And that's one of the things that has been talked about. Kind of difference between what we've done with the remodels and then like Mitchellville, for example, how you go in there and you have an open space, but yet it's controlled by a door. You can still see in it, but it's not accessible. So
I hesitate to mention this, but I know we're looking at the internals of the school, of a possibility of the school at the moment, but making sure that we have easy flow of parking access and exits. I'm sure our parents would be very happy with that. It's been an interesting week so far.
Yeah, I can speak for my group on the night when we did that. That was a big part of the conversation.
Yeah.
you can, no matter what you do, I live across from Clay and every morning it's a disaster.
Yeah.
And that was well thought out. So it's,
Yeah, but I mean, at least we can try to make it not a disaster. So,
any other questions for the RFK group? If not, guys, I appreciate the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on that before we move on to the other one, guys? Or everybody good?
Looks good.
All right, looks like 3E, we have Mr. Pettit for high school schedule.
Good evening, board. Can everyone hear me?
Oh,
sir.
absolutely.
Perfect.
Mhm.
I'm going to now try to share my screen. Make sure I do the right one. Okay. Is everybody seeing a presentation that says high school hybrid 1 schedule?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk about the high school schedule. When making decisions this fall on how we wanted to operate a schedule in the second semester, we went through several considerations. So on this list, I've kind of had the priority considerations that we were considering when making this decision on what we wanted our second semester schedule to entail. And I think the one of the highest priorities is just the understanding that we have staff that are working with in-person students and remote learners. during the first semester, remote learners and in-person learners were scheduled into the same classroom. We had very few standalone remote learner sections of courses in our building. We added some of those throughout the semester by using instructional coaches, but that was more of an after the fact improvement effort that we didn't have planned at the beginning. So at the end of the first semester, we were collecting data and requests from families on who was going to be a remote learner. And we've built specific sections for those students, but those are within the staffing assignments of our in-person teachers. So we have about 24 sections across our core areas that are solely for remote learners. And our teachers that are teaching those will teach probably 4 or 5 in-person sections, and then 1 or 2 remote sections to balance out their workday. So we needed to develop a schedule that could work for our staff, regardless of whether they were working remotely with kids or they're working in person. Second priority, which you guys addressed earlier, is just the need for a socially distanced lunch. As we've talked about before, lunch is the portion of the day where we probably incur the most risk for exposure. Obviously, students have to take their masks off when they eat. So it was important to me and our staff to provide a schedule in which we could do that, and we have. I will address how we're doing lunch right now, but we have students that are eating in classrooms. We have determined the maximum number we can eat with a 6-foot minimum distance in all of our classrooms that we're using for lunch. And we have at most 14 students currently in a specific classroom. If the classroom is smaller, then we would have fewer numbers of students eating in there. Our commons, we can have 115 students eating at any one time and have 6 foot of socially distanced space between any student. What that looks like is 2 students sitting at a 8-person circular table, or 3 students sitting at a 12-person rectangular table. So it's about a 4th capacity of what our commons is for lunch. So there was a comment about, can we use other space in our building to eat? And actually what we've decided to do is we're using the auditorium as kind of an area to house students in order to provide the other students time to eat in a socially distanced, location. So I'll go through our lunch schedule a little bit later, but that is a super high priority for us, was to be able to provide a safe environment for kids to eat. MTSS, multi-tiered systems of supports, is really an opportunity for our students to get help from any of their teachers. So what we wanted is to have a daily opportunity for our students outside of their regular scheduled class time to get help from teachers. We implemented this in the first semester when we were doing hybrid 2. It's something we want to continue. We've had some really strong success with it. It really does help, especially when students weren't in school every single day and running on a block schedule where they don't see all of their classes every single day. Having that time built in during the day where they can go in and opt in to get extra help from their teachers is something that we prioritize. The next bullet is just really college and career readiness. A lot of our colleges, a lot of students that go on to post-secondary education, they do not have an environment or a structure where they have every single class every single day. So we felt like some of the benefits of a block schedule really does prepare our students for that post-secondary experience. It really provides students with opportunities to build time management skills, organization skills, and communication skills. And we really valued that when we were trying to make decisions for second semester scheduling. And then the last consideration is really we wanted fewer transitions throughout the day. If you're running an 8-period day, you have students transitioning many times throughout the day. And really that's lost instructional time. Plus it just gives more opportunity for interactions between students. So we wanted to reduce the transitions as much as possible. So the details of the schedule, it's a block period, 4 days a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, we have a block period. We have 8 periods, where our odd periods would meet on Mondays and Thursdays. Our even periods would meet on Tuesdays and Fridays. On Wednesdays, every Wednesday, we have a late start restoration time. And on Wednesdays, we do have all of our students meeting all 8 of their classes. They're 23 minutes in length. So they are shorter, but our traditional 8-period day prior to COVID, our class periods were about 35 minutes. So we've always had a shorter 8-period day on Wednesdays. The MTSS, which is also our lunch period, is 100 minutes during the middle of the day. And I'll explain what that looks like when I show you the next slide. And then also, we do operate on a black gold schedule, and that's really our every other day classes. Our PE meet on an every other day basis. Some of our AP science classes have extended lab time. Our math classes are divided into 2 different levels, an A level and a B level. So our A level math classes have extended time that meets on an every other day basis. So our black days are the first half of the week, Monday, Tuesday. Our gold days are the back half of the week, Thursday, Friday. So then what alternates is Wednesday. It's either going to be a black or gold, and I'll show you what that looks like in the next slide. So this is a comprehensive view of our schedule. As you can see, Mondays and Thursdays are odd periods. One of them is a black day on Monday, one of them is a gold day on Thursday. So if a student has first hour PE on black days, they would have first hour PE on Monday. If they would have first hour PE on gold days, then their PE class would meet Thursday. Tuesday, Friday, those are even periods. Again, black on Tuesday, gold on Thursday. And then you can see the schedule for the 8-period day on Wednesday. We do have a consistent time for our lunch or MTSS. It's after what would be either 5th or 6th period. So the only thing that comes after lunch or MTSS is our 7th or our 8th periods. And again, that's 100 minutes long. What that consists of for freshmen and sophomores is a 25-minute lunch period, either in their classroom or in the commons. It consists of a 25-minute period in the auditorium. And then it consists of a 50-minute MTSS time in their advisement location. We do have a process where students can prearrange time or prearrange kind of a checkout process with their regular classroom teachers. So instead of having to go to their advisement and then check out from there to go get help from, let's say, a math or a science teacher, they would just go directly to the math or science teacher to really maximize the amount of MTSS time that they can have and not have a lot of wasted time walking from point A to point B just to go to point C, if that makes sense. This last slide, you can see there's not much difference between these 2 slides. The only difference is on Wednesdays. Again, the previous slide, Wednesday was a black day. The alternating week, Wednesday would be a gold day. So again, this is our schedule. It is very consistent with what we did during the first semester, which is something that we do want to provide our kids with some consistency. If we were to have to go to remote learning, this would be the template of the schedule that we would use for remote learning, like we did during the 2 weeks in December after the Thanksgiving break. Again, it does provide a schedule where our teachers can work with in-person students during certain periods and remote students during other periods, if those are the periods they have remote-only sections. And I will open it up to whatever questions anyone has.
Mr. Pettit, you mentioned earlier that during lunch, the students have a choice to eat in their classrooms, but you have a maximum of, I think you mentioned 14 due to space.
Correct.
Does that mean the teacher has to eat in the classroom as well to supervise those kids?
No. And it's not the student's choice on where they eat. We assign, so our advisor, their kids, if let's say an advisor has 26 students in their advisement, administratively, we will determine how many of those 26 kids can eat in the classroom and how many of those kids need to eat in the commons. So the advisor will determine which of those 26 kids are the 12 or 14 that would eat in the classroom and which would eat in the commons. When their students, when that advisor's students are eating in the commons, the ones that were eating in the classroom, they're waiting in the auditorium. So during that 25-minute period of time, that teacher's students are not in the classroom. That's when the teacher eats. So what we've provided is our teacher has a 25-minute period of time where they're supervising a portion of their advisement students eating in the classroom. They have a 25-minute period of time where they have their lunch duty. And then they have a 50-minute of time where they're providing MTSS support to their advisement students or other students that they have throughout the day that have checked in to their classroom.
How has this block, and we've not done block before this year, is that right?
Correct.
How has this been received by staff? I mean, I've heard very little, so, but.
Yeah. You know, the 100-minute lunch MTSS time is something that we determined we have to do in order to provide the socially distanced lunch.
Right.
So with that caveat of having it to be in the schedule, kind of, I got input from the staff, and would they prefer to try to do an 8-period day, 5 days a week with having that 100-minute MTS lunchtime every day? And 90% of them chose they thought the block was a better plan.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, at this time with the variables that we're having to consider, you know, with the socially distanced lunch,
yes,
we felt like it was the best usage of our time. It maximizes the instructional minutes that we could have. You know, a lot of our teachers, obviously, at the beginning of the year, you know, we were learning how to teach on a block as we were doing it. That's not your best plan. You know, in hindsight, obviously, we wish we would have been able to provide, you know, more front-loaded professional development. But again, we were trying to make decisions as we were you know, adjusting to COVID like everyone else.
Right.
But I think our teachers have learned a lot throughout this first semester when it comes to teaching on the block. You know, there are a lot of times where, you know, a specific lesson really doesn't fit very well in a 45-minute class period. So there's a lot of times previously on an 8-period day where a teacher would teach a lesson and then they would continue it into the second day. And the block obviously, you know, provides us with a longer period of time, which means our lessons wouldn't be split over multiple days. So that's been a good benefit of this. So, you know, what we're doing right now is obviously making the best out of our current situation. We feel like this schedule provides our students with the best instructional support through that MTSS time. Really, they have 3 opportunities a week to have face-to-face instruction from their teachers, 2 80-minute blocks of time, and then a short kind of midweek time. We'll continue to collect, you know, our observations and feedback from our staff. We will be collecting information from our students about their experience, because as we, you know, transition post-COVID, we have to make the decisions. What's the best high school schedule? Just because we've done an 8-period day in the past doesn't mean that's what we want to revert to. It might be, but that's where we want to collect some feedback from the students that experienced it, from the teachers that experienced it, and really try to find the best way to maximize the time we have with our students.
Well, I have one student in here. What's your perspective? Guess we'll mic you up first. Just curious. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just, how's it going?
I think the block schedule is going really well. Like Mr. Pettit said, the MTSS time, I think has been really beneficial for a lot of the student body if they need that extra help. But like he said, the 3 times a week, and that's pretty typical to college. And the MTSS is kind of like office hours in a sense. So I think it does prepare the students that are going to college or for that next level. So their time and organization skills are getting developed right now.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrick. Anything else for Mr. Pettit?
Looks good.
All right, appreciate it, Mr. Pettit. Thanks for the work It's you and your staff have done and the students for getting through this fun times, I guess.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything else for the,
Yeah, I've got something
Okay.
surprising. Before we adjourn, I just want to have each of you go out when you have time, and both those first two education bills at the legislature are having subcommittee meetings Monday at 1:45 and 10:15. One's on vouchers and one is their 100% in-person requirement for all. So it would be good if you took the time to go out and made comments before the subcommittees meet on Monday. Just as an FYI.
all right,
If you want, I'll share some links for you.
sounds good. Haven't ever done this before, but Patrick, you got anything from the students? You got complaints, issues?
Wrong list.
Complaints. No, Patrick, we don't want your complaints.
One out of school.
No, I don't have any complaints.
Nothing
I
today.
think-
It's kind of last minute, but I thought, we've never asked the students. Heck, why not, All right. Anything else for the good of the cause? If not, can I
Move to adjourn.
thank you very much? Second,
Second.
thank you. We are